When you operate from a solutions-based mindset, your problems become paychecks. Stop running from the only thing that's going to make you wealthy. What up? Another episode of From the Bottom podcast. As always, it's Fitz. We got Ty.
Rude boy.
We got Aaron. This guy.
Wow.
How y'all been? How was y'all's week?
Can't complain, man. Give thanks.
The people want more than that. That's your whole week.
Hey, when you have a different mentality and an ego, that's just the way it goes. You feel me?
I guess so. What about you, Aaron?
Doing the day-to-day, working, coming home, hanging out with the dog.
Have you taught him any
Sleeping.
tricks?
Huh?
Have you taught your dog any tricks?
I mean, he knows a few. He knows the basics, sit, lay. He knows paw, which is a handshake. And we're working on his sit and stay just to see how long he could sit there. So when we're out on the river fishing or wherever it may be, he's not trying to follow you into the water or do some dumb stuff.
So I mean, those are cool, but the real question I'm getting at is, have you taught him how to mess somebody up if they come in your house?
No, he's a dog. He does that naturally. I mean, I got a few pictures of him standing right there by the little patio door. And when people run by, if there's other dogs outside, he's sitting there on patrol barking. So I don't think you don't have to teach a dog how to be a dog. You just have to teach him how to not be a wild animal in your home.
So do you think the same works for like success? Do you think that people that are bound to be successful, you gotta teach them how to be successful, or that they just got something in them?
I know, I guess the same thing. I wouldn't say bound to be successful, but I guess just like a basic life scenario. Just Donald Trump's son or NFL players' sons or people who have a lot of money. If you're born into it, just like I said, you can't teach a dog how to be a dog. So if somebody like LeBron James' son, obviously he was, I guess with your term, he was bound to be successful because he's LeBron James' son. Mm-hmm. But you had to teach LeBron James' son how to be himself to be successful and not be like his dad.
Okay.
With basic people, some people learn it. Some people discover different avenues throughout life that they didn't know about 2 years ago. Some people, may have a father who has a roofing business. He's been doing it for years, but they're just too lazy and don't want to do anything. And then you got people who just have to work a little bit harder. And when they get there, maybe, they have the best business you could imagine, or maybe they're just successful and they can live a stress-free life.
Okay. What you think, Ty? You think success is just in some people, or you think it's something that anybody could work towards?
I would say anybody could work towards it. I don't think people really. I mean, some people probably born with it, born into it, things like that. But if people just stop making excuses, do what they need to do, be disciplined, committed, they'll get to where they want to be.
No, I agree with that. And I think now that I'm thinking about it a little more, Aaron was saying he didn't have to teach his dog how to be a dog, but the example he was given, like when people run by, his dog is like barking. But I look at like the dog is there where the dog needs to be for the opportunity for the dog to be a dog. Like the dog ain't laying in the bed chilling, like the dog is where the dog needs to be in case something happens. And I think so many of us are not where we need to be in case something happens for us to be able to take advantage of that opportunity to be successful. So I think like you can be successful, but if you're not in the right place at the right time, you may miss the opportunity to be that successful person that you're meant to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we in agreement. Okay.
That's good.
First few minutes we in agreement. That's good. So
That's funny.
so I got a story and I want y'all's little input on it. And this blew my mind. So I was out at dinner the other day with some people. I'm not gonna say no names. I'm sure y'all know. But I was out at dinner and we was eating. It was like a local black restaurant. And we was eating, and this dude was finessing. Like he was like, like we said what we wanted to order, and he was finessing like, well, y'all should try the starters. And the people I was with, they was like, they can't say no. Like they don't say yes, but they can't say no. And it got to the point to where like I'm more direct. So I'm good. This is what I want. They're like beat around the bush, giggling, laughing, so I get up and I go to the bathroom. And before I go to the bathroom, I'm like, he's finessing y'all. Y'all need to just get what y'all getting and just chill. So I go to the bathroom and I come out the bathroom. He done got them up. They standing by the counter and he's showing them some desserts. And they $25. This like it's called king cake. It's like a cream cheese cake, and they $25. I come out the bathroom. I don't know what's going on. I just walk up like, what's going on? They like, there's these cakes, and he's talking. I'm like, I'm good. I'm gonna let y'all decide, but I'm good. I don't want that. So they're like going back and forth, giggling, and they don't really want it, but they can't tell him no. So what he does is he takes them, he picks it up, and he brings it to the table and puts it down on the table. And he's like, I'm gonna leave that there for y'all so you could make a decision before you leave. So he's making the food, and I'm like, y'all need to tell him no, because like if you don't, he's gonna keep thinking you're gonna get it. Like, just tell him you don't want it. And it gets to the point to where it stays there the whole time. I finally have to say something. I'm like, we're good. We don't want this, but we will take some peach cobbler. The peach cobbler ain't $25. So we gonna take some peach cobbler. So we get the peach cobbler. We go to check out. He rings up the $25 snack because they kept it on the table the whole time. And they was willing to pay. They didn't even read the receipt. He had them so finessed. He said the price. Okay, boom, boom. I'm like, hold up. I've been doing math the whole time. I know what we supposed to be paying.
This guy.
So I look at the receipt. I'm like, wait a minute.
Mr. Krabs.
The king crab thing is on there. We didn't want the king crab. He's like, oh, I didn't, like, and so he ended up refunding the $25 that, he was doing. But it got me thinking, like, that whole scenario took place because the people I was with, they were not direct, right? They weren't direct. They didn't just say no. They led him on, and they was just like, I don't know. They didn't tell him no, but they didn't tell him yes. And somewhere in there, they communicated that they wanted it enough for him to put it on the bill. And so my question is, like, is it better to be direct, or is it better to kind of beat around the bush and hope somebody understands what you're trying to say?
Always be direct. Like
Why
you
do you
mentioned.
say that?
I feel like when you beat around a bush, sometimes people take what you say, maybe what you do, in their own perspective. So then there's such a big miscommunication all the time that if you were just direct and say what you said in the moment or say how you felt, whatever, um, people will be more clear on your expectations or how you feel about the situation.
Whose responsibility? Like, whose responsibility is it though? Do you feel like the person that can see, okay, they're not really feeling it, or the person that is under pressure and they're like, I don't want to be mean?
Hey, some people fold under pressure. It's not about being mean. It's just about being direct. Tell her, tell her what you want, bro. Like my man's out here trying to finesse, trying to get, trying to get a check. It seemed like so. They could have just been like, "Nah, we're okay," but maybe they like the attention. He ain't say nothing about that.
So I know Aaron, you work in like the healthcare field, and it's like it could be a sensitive environment when maybe you know more about something like somebody's condition than they know, and maybe you can't be direct at times the way you would, like if you were talking to somebody that you knew better. Have you
Uh,
experienced that in your field where it's like you want to be direct, but you got to phrase it a certain way and hope that they catch on to what you're trying to say?
well, I guess my first question would be, because I know who you're talking about, did they want the cake or did they not want the cake?
This is what I'm saying. For the
But did you
price,
ask
they
him
did it.
though? Did you ask him though? Did you want the cake?
Yeah, he was like, "Do y'all want it?" And they didn't want it. Like they behind, like at the table when he wasn't there. That nah, we don't want it. It's too much. But they
Okay, well
couldn't tell
then
him.
basically they should have just told him. But I don't know. I was just thinking because one of them was just a fat ass that she just wanted to eat the cake because she's like you, always eating. But in the job, and I mean, at least in my job, you can't really. That'll get you in trouble if I tell a person, hey, don't worry about it, you'll be okay, and they end up getting COVID because that's what's going on right now and dying. And they're like, oh well, this guy at such and such place when I was there said this, and there's no documentation because you always got to documentate, just like anything, any business. So if they held a grudge or something went wrong and the family got upset and there was no documentation of me saying, hey, actually there might be a problem, now all of a sudden I'm in trouble. So just like anything in life, if if you have I guess for lack of better terms, if you have a certain level of commitment or trust from the community, or trust from your partnership at your business, or trust that, when you're up there doing your roofing work, that all the equipment that you need to stay safe is up there. If you don't tell people that there's a problem, they'll never know that there's a problem and it'll never get fixed.
So what about like a face-to-face scenario where, like somebody there's a word called being blunt. Like people who are blunt are considered like they just get straight to the point. But then there are people
Right.
that have they'll tell a story. Like say I have some bad news to break, and I'm like, "Hey, Aaron, like you let me drive your car. You know, I crashed it. Like some people get straight to the point, and then there's other people that got to tell a story. Hey, Aaron, like the roads were slick. It was snowing. Some like they got a whole story, and then they never actually say what's happening, but they want you to get it. Like,
Right.
is there a benefit to one over the other, or is it just like it depends on the person? Because I don't know. I
I mean,
run
it
into this
depends on the
situation.
person. Papa, for instance, when you sit down with him, you're going to get a story.
Yeah.
No matter what the topic is or whatever you're talking about, you're going to get a story. And then there's other people, like, I don't know, if you're just hanging out with your friends or whatever, that maybe at that moment you're not in deep conversation and you're just kicking the shit, for lack of better terms. Sorry, we can't cuss, but that's what they call it. So, but then there's the other side of it, sometimes with your family members, you don't sit down every day, all day long, every moment of your life, and all you do is get in deep conversation with them because everybody's got other things to do. So, I mean, it depends on who it is, yes, but then I guess it also depends on what you're trying to find out. If you're trying to find out why somebody tried to commit suicide, you probably want a little bit more story than, this is what happened and I didn't know what I was thinking. Versus if you're trying to see why those two certain individuals couldn't just say, I don't want the cake, then all you needed to know was that they didn't want the cake. So we could have told the guy, we don't want the cake.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm hearing from y'all, Ty, like, no, I'm being direct. What you thinking, Ty? I know you got some input.
Mm, I say be blunt all the time, man. Just be. I mean, that's authentic self. Like, I think it depends on your environment too. I feel like in every place is different. In Florida, it's a different mindset. Everybody just they straight to the point. Ain't no storytelling, especially especially in different situations.
So you
So
saying you if you went to a restaurant
yeah,
and like you don't really know the person making your food,
right,
and there's a way to say like, hey, can I get some ketchup, or hey, you messed up on my order.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's a blunt way to say it, and then there's like a beating around the bush, like, I want you to fix this, but I don't want my food to get, I don't want spit in my food. Like I don't want you to,
I
you know what
mean,
I'm saying?
if you feel like people spitting in your food, you should be going out to eat.
You should.
I mean, it's that simple. Like you, I mean, you pay for it. That's the thing. At the end of the day, is like you paying for something to be what it's advertised as, and so if it don't come correct, like ain't no beating around the bush saying, I'm gonna just let it go. Like, hey, this don't taste right. This is cold. This is old. I've been to restaurants where um we ordered what did we order? We ordered like some type of vegetables or something, and they came out and they were all moldy.
Mm.
And so the people I was with, they caused a scene. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, you gotta be blunt to be able to get your point across. I mean, I don't think you have to be like blatantly disrespectful, but if it comes to that point, then you do what you gotta do.
And I think some people, they're uncomfortable being direct because they don't want to come off as mean, or they don't know how to deal with conflict. Like it seems like it's a conflictual situation when you're confronting somebody about something because you don't know where their mentality is at. So like
Mm,
example with the cake things, like if they was like, no, we don't want it. In my
mm,
mind, I'm thinking that's just cool. Like there's no problem with that. But then in their mind, they may be thinking, like, well, we've been having a good conversation so far. I don't want to change the vibe. Like I don't want them to be mad at me. And I mean, where does that idea of somebody is going to be mad at you for you being direct with them and telling them what you want? Like, where do you think that comes from in people?
I don't know. I mean, I
It's
feel like
probably just like what you guys been talking about. I mean, so since we're not talking about my job requires me to have a certain level of professionalism. That's how I'm able to maintain my job and pay my bills. So if we're talking about real life, just to make it short and sweet, I mean, no emotions come with lying about anything. So at the end of the day, if you feel like you meant everything that you said, and there wasn't a point in time where you just started saying stuff because you're just an evil person, and you're like Ty said, you're trying to not be blatantly disrespectful, but you're also not going to say less than what you feel. If it's life, if you start lying, then all you get is lies in return. At work, I mean, that would apply for any one of our professions. I mean, Robert can't go to work and be like, hey, you know what? You don't want to buy this house, then you're wasting my time.
I mean, that's
We
true.
already seen 15 houses and you still haven't picked one. So, but at the end of the day, if he's not professional, he doesn't sell a house. He doesn't get a paycheck for the month. So, I mean, it just applies in every aspect of life. I mean, so same scenario. If we were talking about the restaurant, my example, I went to Red Lobsters one time, me and the
Mm.
girlfriend at the time. I didn't want to go to Red Lobster, but it's like, all right, let's go to Red Lobster. We're about to get some dope fish. It's going to taste good. I'm about to eat some biscuits. And then you get the food. You, like you guys are saying, you get this hype, and then you get the food. And as we're eating the food, there was a hair intertwined in the fish, in the rice. And like it wasn't until that bite of that food was taken that you pulled the hair and it moved everything, and you realize there's a long hair in this food. So kind of like what you were saying, Robert, I don't want anybody spitting my food. So I'm the same exact way. I know how to cook. I would rather cook and not spend an obscene amount of money on just trying to get a piece of fish when we could have made it at home. So I just let them know what was up. Like, hey, this is disgusting, first off. Second off, I thought this was a place that presents themselves better than somebody's long strand of hair entwined in your food. And then second, I was like, I wouldn't want it replaced. I just need my money back so I can leave. And I got my money back and I left. So in the life, I'm going to be direct. I'm going to tell you what's on my mind. It may not be right. It may not be wrong, but I'm not going to hold back just because I don't want to put my opinion out there. Kind of like with the cake. They should have just said, no, we don't want the cake. And you wouldn't have had a doubt with that. You guys could have left way before that. But at the end of the day, man, just be, if you don't feel like you have a reason to be remorseful about what you're saying, then I guess you say what you got to say. But if you're going to be blunt and direct, make sure that you're being blunt and direct all the time and not just some of the time. Like if you only do it during, I'm mad because they were trying to order the cake versus this is your job and you're presenting yourself as a business person. So you got to be blunt to, like Ty said, a point to where you're still professional, but you can't waste your time, but you also can't be blatantly disrespectful. That's the word that Ty used. So when you start becoming disrespectful for no reason, that's when the line is, I guess, kind of like changes for a person to them just not being assertive and blunt and telling you, hey, this is what we got to do for this amount of time we got to do it versus, you can't just show up and be like, hey, you're wasting my time. You guys suck. 15 houses later. You just got to, try to stay not blatantly disrespectful, but as blunt as you can get it to get your point across.
And I think that comes with practice. And I think a large issue with, being direct is that we don't get enough practice. And most of the time when a lot of people are being direct, it is in a high pressure conflict situation where, they're kind of learning on the spot. And I guess it really got me thinking, because I was thinking about being direct and beating around the bush with ourselves more than other people. And I see a lot of people beating around the bush with themselves. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but have you ever like questioned somebody and it was like within 3 seconds, it's like, okay, there's the problem, but they made it seem way more complicated than it was when they originally told you?
I got a question. Who paid for the meal yesterday?
It was separate.
Okay. Because you was out here acting like you was paying for it. I'm like, hey, Fitz, he ain't finna pay for that. He ain't finna pay for nothing. He ain't touching nothing.
Nah, it's a
and they was finna pay for it out of their own pocket. Okay.
I helped, but
Okay.
I can't associate myself with that kind of
I understand.
that kind of
man,
beating around the bush with yourself. Do you do it? Do you don't do it?
Nah, man, I try to be straightforward and try to, obviously you have shortcomings, but I definitely try to uphold myself to a higher standard. Um, and sometimes you need those moments of like, all right, you acting up, you need to tighten up. Like what you're doing is not, it's not going good for you. And I think it's good to have people around you that say the same thing. It's hard to take, I wouldn't even say criticism, but it's hard for somebody to be the same way towards you that you would probably be with them. Like I got one friend who is very similar to me and is blunt about a lot of situations. And sometimes it's like, who you think you talking to? Like, who you think you talking to like that? Hold on now. But that's it, it's a reflection of me, and it just reminds me not to beat around the bush with myself.
None. I think that's important too. And if you could dive deeper into that, like, when we talk about beating around the bush, I think it's important to understand that a lot of the times we don't even know that we're doing that. And we don't know that we're actually not allowing people to make us aware that we're being, so it's like your brain plays a trick on you where you're doing it, but you make it apparent to not allow you to know that you're beating around the bush. It's like,
Right.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like we know we can talk about it and articulate it, but there's some people watching that's like, well, y'all not perfect, y'all do this. So like as we're thinking about how to challenge ourselves, you know, like what are some ways that it's like, okay, looking back on it, I was beating around the bush, and it wasn't until whatever that I realized that's what I was doing.
Yeah, I think a good example is like procrastination. Um, for me, with grad school, I have certain things due on certain days. We got asynchronous work due every week, so it's more of like, am I gonna sit back and you know stress about it because I know I have one due every week? Am I gonna stress? Am I gonna waste so much time doing other things that I don't do what I need to do, or am I gonna do what I need to do and get ahead? That way, I have more time in advance to focus on other things and be less stressful.
So you're centered around stress. Like, so would you say that you're beating around the bush to avoid the stress, or would you were beating around the bush because you didn't want to deal with it at that moment?
I say beating around the bush to the point where you don't want to deal with it right now. Like you just put it off and put it off, and then at the last minute you're like, "Oh my god! Like I got this stuff due," but you already knew it was due. You already knew that it was due on this day around this time. You got class, you got this, you got that. And so many things happen that are out of your control, and it seems like it always happens around those chaotic moments. So being blunt and aggressive with yourself and saying, I'm gonna do this on this day, get it all done, and maybe do even more to prepare me for the next week. So then I don't have to worry. I can just mainly cruise and I know that I'm good.
Okay, I feel it. I see Aaron. You got something to say, Aaron?
I mean, I just the same, dude. I may have a certain way that I think about things, or just like everybody else, a difference of opinions. But at the end of the day, I'm just kind of like, I know what I'm doing. I know how I'm doing it, whether it was during a relationship or during jobs or during certain aspects. If I'm going to do it, I'm just going to try to do it to the best of my ability. If I fall short, then at least I tried. So for me, being blunt for myself is just understanding that I am a person. I can learn a lot of things and try to do a lot of different stuff. Doesn't mean I'll be the best or I'll succeed over anybody. But if it's something that I'm willing to take on, I'm going to try to do it and learn it and be the best at it. And if I'm not the best, but I'm one of the people you remember, then that's one and the same thing. Just always hard work, just always applying yourself, putting it in there. Like, honestly, I would have rather slept all day, but I'd be lying to myself and I wouldn't be being true if I didn't understand that, one, I have a dog I got to take out. Two, I don't want him to make a mess all over my house. Because, like we said earlier, I can't teach him how to not be a dog in this instance, because eventually he will use the bathroom in the house and then I'm going to be mad about it. But I can teach him how to wait until I let him outside where he's supposed to be a dog. So I definitely didn't want to be on the podcast. I had other things to do. I could be fishing right now. But just like I said, me being blunt with myself is just understanding, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to continue to do it until there's a point that there's no longer time to do it, or just try to continue to put and apply myself and do it.
So do you guys think, because a lot of what you guys are saying is similar, as far as like it seems like you're naturally more direct and blunt. And earlier we were kind of talking about how you can teach yourself how to be successful. You can learn how to be successful. Um, as far as being direct and or blunt, how much better would it be if you had a strategy, like because it seems like now it's just, well, this is who I am, this is kind of how I've always been. how much better would it be if you had a strategy? Like if it was like you knew how to be direct with yourself instead of just being direct. Do you have a strategy? Do you like have a game plan for being direct, or is it just, you know, this is just how I approach every situation?
I mean, it depends again what we're talking about. Like, just real quick, with work, I made a decision to be blunt about the fact that I'm not coming on vacation. I'm definitely not coming to, you know, sit in the hot springs and sip lattes or hot toddies or whatever they drink in the cold water. I was pretty blunt to the fact that I'm gonna move up there. It's gonna suck. You're not gonna know anybody. You got three objectives right now: learn the job, get good at the job, and find a way to advance at the job.
Hmm.
So I've already basically got the first step knocked out of the way. I learned the job and now I'm working on my own. So now my job is to be able to, when I show up, put 100% in effort, trying to get the job quickly, effectively, and, you know, in the guidances that they apply for healthcare. And then third, I'm just waiting for the marks to hit where I can, one, go back to school and, you know, start reading some books and get some more updated education information. And then two, I've already told them I want to actually hold the other job that you got on the website because I feel like I can do both at the same time while I'm here when you guys schedule me. So now I'm already looking at holding the other position, main goal being able to work a fifth or sixth day in a row, get some overtime, a little bit more money, and not just be, you know, I can't pay $25 for the cake. Maybe one day I'll pay $25 for the cake, but not right now. But yeah, that's me being blunt with myself. I had three main goals. Second one's in progress. The third one, I just got to wait on the stipulation of how long I've been at the company. And then once I could get my money back, an investment in myself. So I'm going to apply some money to take some more classes, but not because I'm going to give it to the government. It's because I'm going to pay for it, but because education is valued, I'm going to get it reimbursed as long as I have the receipt. So it's just a continuing cycle of money and revenue towards myself. And I don't have to worry about losing money because at the end of the day, even though we pay for education, we've all be in agreement that it's like, shit, now I got a debt. Now I got to pay it back. How am I going to do that?
Gotta get Ty on the line.
Got to get him on the line.
Magic.
I'm sure he paid it all out of pocket.
He showed up and flexed. Look at him.
I'm grateful. That's all I can say.
Hey.
I'm grateful.
Look at him. You look like you had something. Did you want to chime in?
Nah, you good. I agree with what he said. I mean, yeah, I mean he really hit the nail on the head for real.
Okay, so we. Oh wow, I'm taken aback.
This guy.
Let me get comfortable in my chair real quick because we about to get into the topic of
this guy.
we about to get into the topic, and this hit me when I was waiting to get the vehicles registered. I was waiting for like an hour and a half, and there was a show that came up on the TV. It was like a dog show, and people were adopting dogs. Like they would come to the shelter and they would adopt the dog, and they would have like a background of the dog, like where it came from. They would let the people meet the dog, and then the people would like fall in love with the dog and pet the dog, and then eventually take the dog home, right? So I'm watching this show and I start thinking about like self-doubt for whatever reason. I start thinking about self-doubt, and I really wanted to touch on just this whole concept of self-doubt and where it comes from. Like, and I started looking at it like a court case. You know, like people will build up a case against themselves for why they can't do something. And now I'm starting to question, like, what's the evidence? Like, I talk to so many people and they tell me that they can't do something. And I really just want to know, like, what is the evidence? So when we look at it from like a, you know, what are the actual reasons why someone can't do something, and we replace the like, I can't do this because of whatever, is that strong evidence? And I don't know about you guys, but some of the evidence that I see people present, it's like, how would that hold up in an actual court case against yourself? Like it's faulty evidence a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys have thought about this in like great detail, but have you been in that situation where, you know, maybe even with yourself or with someone else, where it's like they present a reason why they can't do something, or maybe they present a reason why they think they should do something. It's like, well, that's not really good evidence. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was just a lingering thought, and I wanted a different perspective on it.
Yeah, the evidence is just like I said. I think I already answered it. If you got to try. Like it don't matter what it is if you don't. Evidence that would hold up in the court is if you tried. If you didn't try to do it, you can't tell me that you can't do it. Now, if you went and you tried to do it and you did the best you could, but you fell short, one, it falls into both categories we've been beating on. You were true to yourself because you said you were going to try to do it and do it the best you could. And then the other point that we're talking about right now, the proof was that I put all of my commitment in it, did everything I could to get to wherever point you got to, but you just weren't good enough to keep doing it. So if you tried, there's no problem in telling somebody, hey man, you know, I tried, I did everything I could. I trained to lift all the weights in the gym. I tried to be the best basketball player in the world, but I just didn't get to that point. But the point that I got to was good enough for me because I tried and I applied myself and I was true to myself, never gave up, never quit, but I just wasn't able to be the best. So
Well,
you
what
tried.
about the
That's the
people that don't
evidence.
try? Like, what about the
Like you
people
said,
that
they
don't
don't have the
try?
evidence. There's no evidence. You can't hold up in the court of humanity with me right now because did you try to do it? Did you try to read the books? Did you try to go to school? Did you guys try to get an education? You
So
did.
how would
And
you help
as you,
them? How would you help that
I,
person that says like, okay, here's the evidence. Nobody in my family's done it. Or, you know, like I failed the math test in 5th grade, so now I can't do math the rest. You know, like people use that evidence and they're really convinced that that is, you know, like when you're in college and stuff, they tell you don't use Wikipedia as like a source, like a credible source, right?
well,
But some
I
people, that's
mean,
all they
true.
know. That's all they know is like, you know, like word of mouth, or, you know, your grandparents, they tell you something and you believe it for life because you respect them. But is that really a credible source? If your grandparents weren't entrepreneurs, is that a credible source for you going to and being like, should I be an entrepreneur? You know, like what, I just think people gather this evidence against themselves, build up a case. They're the judge, the jury, and the executioner,
Mm-hmm.
and they put themselves in a position to where, even like you were saying, even if they don't try, they don't need to try because they have enough evidence to not try.
Well, then there you go. For me, just me being real. For me, I'm gonna try. So if you're a person that doesn't at least try, we can't talk about what you're not doing.
So try
Like
first
they,
and then come with the evidence.
well, not even come with the evidence. Like if you're trying to do something, and one, kind of like you were saying, a credible source, don't definitely don't right now come to me and tell me how to sell a house because I have no damn idea how to sell a house. But if I knew about it or I had knowledge about it, then I'll try to give you some insight. You were talking about, hey, nobody in my family's done anything, this and that. Well, that's our family, but you know, I was trying to go to school and work a job and all that other stuff that you did to get to where you're at right now. But if I didn't try to be like, hey, you know, I'm going to sit down and have a story time and let you know, like, we got to try to be a better generation of Fitzpatricks. Not that they were doing anything wrong, but some people in our family just never do anything right. So try, Robert, to not be like them. I don't know what you want to do. This is what I'm doing right now, but try to figure out a way to not have an excuse to be like, oh, well, the Fitzpatricks, you know, we don't try, we don't do nothing. We just sit at home and do drugs and not apply ourselves in life, you know? So all I said was, Robert, try. And you took it from there. I'm sure you would have probably done it yourself, but you just being a young tyke and bouncing around and things aren't the same for you right now, you know, mom and dad and this and that. You're all alone, don't have no money. You just got to keep on trying. And you applied yourself, you were true to yourself. You didn't let nobody take the effort or the commitment you were putting into yourself away. So if you weren't in this position right now and you were still working at Noodles and Company, I'd be like, Robert, you gotta try to be the manager of that place, bro. Come on now. But you found your way. You're your person, and that's all I wanted you to try to do. And just with anybody else in that family, the fat kid who probably wanted the cake but didn't want to pay for the cake because she would have ate the cake.
We got the
I
cake.
talked to her. Yeah, I applied plenty of times out there, man, out in Vegas when she was hanging out at Papa's house and stuff, and be like, hey girl, like, what are you doing? What are you gonna try to do? What are your goals? Just trying to, again, I can't make her apply herself, but it only takes this long. Step one, then step two, then step three. If you're the type of person that's applying yourself and you're trying, we could talk. If you're the person like you have to leave behind that's still sitting on the couch doing the illegal substances and not applying themselves, they're applying themselves again, like we were talking about, into the black hole. If you're applying yourself into the black hole, I can't really talk to you. If you're applying yourself and you're trying to strive away or trying to get up the river, and the river is always continuously putting you back, if you apply yourself, we can continue to keep talking. But if you're not, with the day you stop applying yourself to get up the river, we can't talk no more because I'm still gonna try.
I feel that. I feel like that explanation would have went better last week too. Cause that's kind of what we were talking about last week, was like that, you know, talking to somebody and then putting the action forth. And I think, you know, when it comes to evidence, we don't really look at the actual things that we're telling ourselves, or, you know, other people are telling themselves. I think we just look at it like, you know, I want to do something, and what are all the things that can go wrong? And I really think that's a bad mentality to take at first, is like, because I used to do that all the time. Like, it got to the point to where if the bus schedule was off by 5 minutes, I wouldn't do something because it's like, well, now, you know, I can't do it because the bus, instead of, you know, well, maybe I could take the bus an hour earlier. You know, it's like, what what are the things? But Aaron came through with the $400 car. I bought the $400
That's what I
car
was
from
about to
him.
say. So I heard Robert trying, and it wasn't an excuse. It was at the time, because you know we can't apply ourselves to our family and be like, hey, we need a little bit of money because ain't nobody doing nothing. So I was like, I don't know if I was the reason, but I put in his ear, come to Pueblo, man, do school out in Pueblo. It's gonna suck, but it's easier to get around because it's so small. So he came out, he was applying himself back in his kin days.
Kente.
Yeah, man, it sucks. I can't do nothing. Like I don't
Kunta
know how
Kintes.
we could try to get to the pond and fish, but you have to come get me. All right, cool. But then I got to a point where I was able to help out a little bit, and however long it lasted till you decided to try to take the road trip, I was like, here you go. Like I really don't want the car, but somebody gave me the car. And Robert's applying himself in the way that I told him he should present himself as a Fitzpatrick and in his life, and he's not doing nothing wrong. So there's nothing wrong with helping somebody trying to do a little better.
Yeah, I got the car, learned how to drive a stick shift. And
So
okay, so
no excuses. The only
I
excuse was
but
the
I
footprint.
didn't even know how to drive when you gave me that car, really. I had never had a car. I didn't even have a license. And within 3 weeks, I learned how to drive a stick shift. I didn't even know how to drive an automatic. I learned how to drive a stick shift so that I could get a car.
Yep.
Like the car was
You
just
applied yourself. You learned. If you were like,
yeah.
hey, Aaron, I can't take the car because I really don't understand how to drive it, and I've been trying. I'll never learn. I'd have been like, well, you just got to keep on trying, because until you drive this car, you're still going to have to wait on the bus. So you would eventually had to learn how to drive the car, which you did. But if you gave up, you would have still been sitting there waiting on the bus, and I'd have been like, I just don't understand why Robert didn't just try to learn how to drive the car.
Some people never try to learn how to drive the car though. It's like they get in, you know, and I think like a lot of these life examples relate to starting a business and being successful, because it's all the same process. Like you run into something, you want to do it, but you don't know how to do it necessarily. And then you never start doing it, so you never learn how to do it. And I think that's the biggest part, is like starting something. And I think with this evidence thing that I'm getting at is people build up such a strong case against themselves that they never start. It's not even like they're building up evidence to get better. They're building up evidence to start and then present this case to someone that comes along and says, hey, Ty, you said that you were going to, start building drums. Whatever happened to that? And he's like, man, I looked up the material on Amazon and I just can't do that. But then you offer a solution. You're like, oh, there's some material down there. It's like a third of the price.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where the shame and the self-doubt comes in at, and the defensiveness. And I think that, I really wanted you guys to touch on this week as well, is like, when we talk about self-doubt, I was talking to somebody and I asked, where does self-doubt come from? And they said something that was interesting. They said all self-doubt comes from other people's opinion at some point. Like there's no self-doubt that comes from you as a person. All of your self-doubt at one point came from someone else and you internalized it. Do you guys agree with that? Disagree? Like, what do you think?
I think to an extent. I think everything, the whole evidence thing is feelings over facts when it should be facts over feelings. Self-doubt, man. Like, I think it does come from people. I think there's a little piece in you that is worried about if you don't make it, what it will look like to people. So kind of your image, and saying that you're gonna do this, but then you failed, and everybody loves you when you're doing it, but then when you don't get there, it's kind of like the support goes away. It's like playing sports. You go to a big D1 school and then you get hurt, everybody forget about you. But when you producing, everybody, your cousin, your brother, your sister, all that stuff. So um I think if you let other people's opinions affect how you move, then yeah, you're gonna have a lot of self-doubt because they can't do it. They look at it from an outsider perspective and think, well, that's impossible. But it may not be impossible. It may be impossible to you. Everything is always impossible until somebody does it.
Yeah, and I feel that. I mean, there was a point in time long back in the time where I'm guilty of letting other people's perception of what I was doing, and I'll give an example here shortly, influence what I was doing. And this goes back way to like when we were talking about, I'm trying to remember what we said, but we were just talking about how, there we go. We were talking about how your mind at a certain, just in its developmental stages, your mind at a certain point is completely vulnerable. Don't matter if it's negativity or positivity. At a certain point when you're younger, your mind absorbs that, and it's hard for subconsciously your minds and your thought process to handle that because you're just not ready for it. Your mind's not developed enough. So I remember, like, I stopped going to school because stuff happened with my family. My support system disappeared, AKA went to jail. And then I was just roaming the streets, actually now being a hoodlum. I thought I was cool. Like, I thought I was cultured, I thought I knew a lot about like the hip hop and stuff. But then I started running the streets. Now I'm hanging out with all these different type of people. They're not doing school. They're not out playing ball at the slabs. They're not doing anything but applying themselves to basically, I guess, today's opinion in society. They're applying negativity onto the world. So I started to fall into that black hole where I'm applying this negativity to myself mainly because I was never raised and I wasn't born to be a bluntly disrespectful person. Like if somebody needs some help, if an old lady drops her phone, I'll be the first person to try to pick it up. So I guess that mentality applies to the hospital. Like if you're sick, I'll be the first person to try to help you. Or the firefighter stuff. If the house is on fire and you need help getting out, I'm gonna be the first person to try to come and help you. Only reason I didn't go with some of the homies that were doing positive is because I didn't feel like I would apply myself correctly to the war on terrorism because I'm not a person that likes to try to hurt people. So I'm not one trying to shoot people, and secondly, not trying to get shot at. So I learned along the way to apply myself in that same type of manner. I'm bigger than myself. There's a lot more things going on than just myself. So I've learned by being honest and blunt with myself. When I learned how to do that correctly, I learned how to apply who I am. And I've done a lot of wrong things, a lot of things that would be frowned on society trying to get to where I'm at. But I've never hurt anybody. I've never, you know, stole somebody's car or robbed a bank at gunpoint. I've done other dumb things as a little kid in my kin days, but it took a minute for me to understand how to apply that to myself because I had an example, but I didn't have the correct example. Like my mom being single, working, and trying to do what she's got to do to pay the bills or get the food or whatever is different than maybe having the same exact household, but having the father figure in the house trying to show me what males do, what a man's supposed to do, or whatever the example is supposed to be as you being a male species. So I learned a lot of empathy and compassion, understanding, and a lot of patience from all the females I grew up for. And then the only positive male figure was grandpa. So I've at least learned how to apply myself at a job, and no matter how long it takes for you to make some more money or how long it takes for you to move up in the company, if you're still not working, you're still not paying the bills, and you're not going to be able to do nothing for yourself. But I had to learn how to be truthful with myself and not let the guys who were selling the weed at the time that was illegal or dropped out of high school or from a different country or just running around doing dumb shit. Um, I had to learn how to, all right, cool, you're still my friend. I got love for you. But I'm also going to be the guy who's going to school, has a job, and is trying to take care of himself. So
So
I grew up with it.
do you think that you learned that after the fact, or were you aware of that before, like while it was happening? Because I think, a lot of what you're touching on is, you were able at some point to get to a place of self-reflection to where you could look back on all the things that happened and you're like, okay, well, here's where I think I doubted myself and here's where I am now. Like there's that comparison. And I know like with Ty, he's talking about like he's secure in himself like right now, and he's direct and he's blunt with other people and blunt with himself. And a lot of what you guys are saying is very similar, but I want to know what it took to get there, because that's the issue that a lot of people are having right now. Like they're looking at us like, well, you guys are there already. You guys got the Ferrari and the Benz, like not literally, but in terms of a mindset, we got like the luxury mindset. But there are some people that are in housing mindsets, like some people have put themselves in mental prison. Like they've built up a case against themselves and they're doing life in mental prison, and they're looking for a way
I've been
out.
doing life. I've been doing life in mental prison for a minute.
You really feel
So,
like you feel like you have
so,
imprisoned yourself?
so I guess that just to kind of end what I was talking on and kind of let Ty put his input. I mean, long story short, growing up when we were talking about the vulnerable minds, I grew up understanding one, I'm not really accepted. When I was in the hood at the school, I was either too different for these people or not the same. So basically, I'm multicultural. I got a Hispanic background, a Black background, And then way in my early days, like my great grandmother was from Spain. So the reason why I really don't have my mom's background and know that family is because I was too black. They didn't appreciate black people or Mexicans. And so now when I'm hanging out with the black people, well, you're really not too black. Like you look like it, but you're just not like us. And then when I'm hanging out with the Mexican people, they're trying to figure out, well, is he really black or white? So I learned a lot about that. And again, I was vulnerable, but it took that point in my life where I was able to understand and process everything and understand that I am who I am, was the point where I started to get over the fact that it doesn't matter if I apply myself and I know what I'm talking about, or I'm doing what I'm doing at the best of my ability and I'm better than everybody else. It don't matter if I fit in, it just matters what I can do and if you appreciate what I can do. So Ty was kind of like talking about playing ball. So the one thing I learned, and some people do this, like Ty said, you get hurt, you're at the top of the game, and now you're not that dude no more. Some people fold under that pressure. But the whole concept of the game, any game, is to teach you how to overcome the pressure during the game. And the game right now is life. So if you have to jump over a hurdle that's bigger than you have to jump over, but you got to figure out how to get over it anyway. If you fold over the pressure, you'll never get over it. If you're hurt, you'll never move on. If you're stuck on the start thing, you'll never move on. But what I learned when I was balling, doing what I was supposed to do, like it don't matter if we got the best team or the worst team. As long as we're a team trying to get better, we could do it together. So you could take that in your own life, or you could take that in your family life or your friends' lives. If everybody's doing good and you guys are trying to get better, kind of like what I was saying, I'll try to help you out if I got a means to help you do something a little bit better. And the only obstacle is you just can't figure out how to get all the money, or like your example, Robert, I can't figure out how to get off the bus right now because I'm just a kid going to school. Like if Robert wasn't being true with himself, or the guy who got hurt, or myself or Ty, if at that point where you didn't let the influencers influence you and you just influenced yourself, and then the influence can't say nothing no more till you get to that point, you're always going to be, for what they say in society, a follower more than a leader.
What do you think, Ty? Like Aaron said, I am who I am. Is there a certain point in your life where you know that, or did you always know that? Like, because I know you're very strong on knowing yourself. Was there a point where you knew you, or is it just something that you've always known?
I think a little bit of both, man. I think what Aaron said is good. I mean, you definitely have to be who you are. You are who you are. I think it comes with a little bit of growth though. So, growing up, I mean, I kind of always knew who I was. I never changed for anybody. Um, and then as time went on, like I started to continue to be my authentic self, but also add in extra stuff to build on upon that. So a good example for me is like um, watching TV all the time. There's people that like, for example, with Trump supporters, a lot of them watch, I think, Fox News or whatever Trump's station was, and a lot of them would just stick on that. Like they were basically like blinders on to anything else that was going on. Um, so I was like that with football, and like it was a lot of not caring about other people. It was just all about me, 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 me. Which at some point I had to not really put myself in the back, but stop being so selfish. And it wasn't until probably when I got to CSU Pueblo where it really like changed for me, because then I was in a new environment by myself. I moved to Pueblo with nothing. Like came up there with no car, nothing, bro. I was staying in the dorms, and my mom was supporting me and all those things. Um, but I say all that to say, like, you can be yourself, but you also have to have some room for growth for sure. Aaron touched on the football thing, and I thought that was interesting because we had played a team in high school, and I went from having like 3,500 kids in a high school to like 500, and small town, and we played this team, and it was a private school, and I was a hip to like the private schools, and they got all the best players and all that stuff. I was a hip to that, so for me, I'm a person that's always going to try no matter what, whether you fail or succeed. And we played against this team, and I mean they were some bad boys. I mean they beat the hell they beat the hell out of us, but I mean I was out there trying, to uplift the team, but a lot of people were giving that self doubt to their kids. Like, oh, y'all not gonna beat them. Y'all just going out there for fun. Like, y'all not gonna beat them. You shouldn't even try. Like, at some point, you accept that. You know what I mean? And I think you also have to throw in there like negative self talk. So when somebody says, "Oh, you can't do this," and you're like, "Maybe I can't do that. Maybe it's just too hard," and that's when it becomes facts. Feelings over facts. Like a lot of people for you, they might have said, "Oh, you can't do real estate. You're not supposed to do that." And I think we also have to touch on cultural norms as well, because many black people, they grow up in an environment that is not what everybody else's environment is. So you might be around drug dealers all the time, you might be around athletes, you might be into music, like you just into what your environment is into. Until you branch out of that, you don't really experience anything else other than that. So you might have, like, a lot of my friends I grew up with, um they're my partners, boy. Like, we were in the streets together, we done all that stuff, but there was a difference. So like my mom, single mom, she could have either folded or kept going, and she just kept it going. It was hard on her, but she kept it going. Um, but for my friends who are of the same background or different backgrounds, there was a difference. Because when we got to high school, it's kind of like we went separate ways. Like, a lot of my partners went to jail. Like, one of my closest partners, he, I mean, bro, you would have thought that he would have been the most successful out of all of us, just because he was so smart. He could build stuff. Like, my bro, I can't tell you how smart he was. And then it wasn't until like probably 2015 he was robbing a bank, and then he went to prison for 5 years. He about to get out in February. Um, but I think that his lifestyle, because his mom wasn't really involved as much. His dad, he wasn't there either. So I think a lot of that self doubt, negative talk, your environment played a part in his role, to the point where he was living the success, and then somewhere down the road he went to prison. And his brother been to prison too. Both of them really smart, man. It's just, it depends on how you let it affect you, bro. You got to know who you are. And like I tell you, and I don't know if I ever told Aaron, you know, as long as you know who you are, it doesn't matter what nobody says. Like, people can say a million things about me, and I'm just gonna either laugh it off or just sit there and, like, till you're done, because it what you say is not gonna break anything. It's not gonna break the mold. And I think that we have to be like that, because when we accept people's opinions or self doubt, we mess up ourselves and self sabotage. And then it's like, well, what did I do wrong? Why didn't I complete this? Why didn't I achieve this? And it's like, because you let other people tell you what you're gonna do. Like I said before, everything's impossible until it's possible. Like, I there's people that broke world records that people were like, nah, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. And then they did it, and then they were like, oh my god, like, couldn't believe it. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you necessarily know in the moment. I mean, you might know, um, but it's not to that reflection process at the end where you're like, dang, I shouldn't have let so and so have a part and have that much power into my life. Because when you let people have that much power, you're gonna lose all the time.
And I think I agree with what you're saying. And I think you were saying towards the end, like that reflection towards the end is when you kind of know. But I think we have to practice better reflecting and how to intentionally reflect, like not just at the end, but create like a schedule and prepare time, set aside time to reflect constantly, and not just when it gets to a point of like, dang, I'm sinking, I'm in a boat and I'm sinking.
Right.
What could I have done to not sink? Maybe you should have checked the boat, periodically to make sure there were no holes and stuff,
Right.
because it's been filling up for a while.
Yeah.
And both of you guys touched on your environments growing up and that playing a part in who you are. And I could definitely go there as well. I just want to say, like you were talking about self-doubt with the football team and the parents telling you guys like you're not going to be able to do it
Yeah.
and all these different things. And when I think about environments, I don't really think the environment is the problem. I think being prepared for the environment is the problem, or like a lack of preparation. Because you were saying last week, like there are people that come to this country with nothing and they become more successful than the people that were born here and didn't have
Right.
to come over here and learn a new language and stuff like that. But what's the difference? Those people that came over here were prepared for the obstacles. Like they knew they were going to be in poverty when they came here, but they prepared for it. They
Right.
knew that they were, so I think it's not necessarily like when you go to a sauna, it's typically going to be hotter than what it is outside. But people prepare by bringing a towel and some water, whatever. Like they prepare
Right.
for that environment. And I think a lot of the issue is people are not preparing for the environment that they're either in or that they want to place themselves in. Like when they want to go into business or start something new, they're not preparing for that environment. So if you know it's going to take you 6 months to get a paycheck when you start your own business, you prepare for that. But if you just
Right.
go in thinking, I'm going to get paid right away, of course you're going to be disappointed and more likely to quit. So what is it that you guys do when you're trying to do something new to prepare yourselves for those environments? Like, is that an issue? Have you ever ran into that where you haven't been prepared for a new environment?
Mm.
I mean, just to generalize it, this is just talking about like hypothetically, it applies to the same scenario in life we've been talking about trying, but a new environment for me, like everything I've been doing is easy. I learned how to take care of people, so that's easy. I didn't know how to run into a place that was completely engulfed in flames, get around the place, understand the new environment, and pitch black darkness while my life's on the line, trying to go and help somebody else. That's a different environment. One, two, because who in their right mind is going to do that? And then two, kind of like you said, like that's my meditation place. I'll sit in there all day just sweating in the steam room. But that environment is unpredictable. It's kind of like what I've been going through, I guess, in a sense in my life. But I had to learn how to do it, do it correctly, and do it safely.
Mm.
So I applied myself and the knowledge and doing the training and reading the books and learning how to do all the different safety precautions to make sure you do, or if you have to, you can safely get out of there in the worst case scenario. That's a different environment for many people. Ain't too many people, just like many people want to go to the Marines. That's a different environment. But again, like we've been saying previous, if you're willing to accept new information, understand that you're not invisible and you're always vulnerable, but you can learn how to be better. I learned how to do things better. And you try, just like we've been talking about the whole time. I tried to do it and I didn't do it because I'm a superhero or I'm Superman. I learned how to do it because I applied myself to take in the information and learn how to do it.
So just
Some people, yeah,
apply it and try it.
there was a big old D1 dude from North Dakota. He got hurt, blew out both his knees, like Ty was talking about.
Mm.
Now he's at the fire academy with me.
Mm.
I'm a big dude, 6'2", 230 pounds. But when I see a big dude, I'm like, "Oh, that's a big dude." So he didn't have to try to put on all the equipment and pull the hose because he's just a big, strong, probably no body fat on his body type dude, 6'5", lugging hose around. But what he did have to learn how to do is get himself through some of the small confined spaces that you train in and do it correctly without losing equipment or pulling off your breather, your SCBA, what they call it. He had to learn how to do that better than other people because he's 6'5" of solid muscle. Me, I had to, one, overcome a hand injury. I just got off a complete hand reconstruction, taking the medicine, sitting on the couch, at the time smoking the marijuana because I didn't want to take the pills. 6 days off of that, I had to learn how to be a firefighter. So my biggest thing was to learn how to overcome the obstacle that my hand isn't the strongest, my body isn't the strongest. But what I learned in sports was if you keep going, you'll eventually get better at doing it. But if you quit, you'll never get better at doing anything. So that was my biggest obstacle, reading the book and understanding the material and taking the test. But that's kind of the thing. Like this guy, he could have showed up just being this stud from football, bigger than anybody on the thing. He could probably lift the truck if you needed him to understanding that he's vulnerable. He does have some weaknesses, but he used that, whatever he learned throughout his life from sports, what we can relate, that if he doesn't try, he'll never know. And he'll never know if he doesn't try.
So he was able to take his knowledge from sports and transfer it and be adaptable. And it sounds like that's what you were able to do too.
That's the biggest thing, and I think maybe Tad will agree. In sports, you learn how to be adaptable. If you're losing, you learn how to win. If you're winning, you learn how to keep winning. You always have to adapt to the situation, and the situation in basketball or football, soccer, whatever sport it is, it's not the same the next second, and it will always change.
Yep. I would say adjust and adapt. That's the mentality, the memo. For me is whether I'm prepared for the situation or not, it's adjusting and adapting to the situation. Because you can catch on. I mean, you got to pay attention and be observant, and then you'll be able to piece together what's really going on. I mean, you could know nothing about, you know, being a firefighter, but if you're on YouTube looking at videos, or if you watch movies or series, you can kind of have an idea. But until you actually see it in person and see people actually moving around and hearing different words and stuff, then you'll be able to catch on. So it's about adjusting, adapting, but also being willing to learn. I think nowadays you can learn anything just by putting in a little bit of time. I mean, like I said, YouTube have everything, bro. I mean, you can sit there for 4 hours solid and have quite a bit of knowledge on whatever it is you're looking up. I mean, I don't know about being a firefighter. Like, I don't know if they have I don't know if they have that on YouTube, but they might.
Man, you could do that.
Like a day in the life.
When I decided I was gonna do that, just like fly fishing, when I decided I was gonna do that, I spent countless hours YouTubing firefighters, how to tie the knots, what do they do? What's the test like? How do you fish better? How do you tie your pole up? What equipment should you use? And I had a lot of understanding based off of what I was being told. But just like you were saying, you could tell me everything you need to know about what you know about doing it, and maybe you're doing it. But until I'm actually in the process of learning it, and whatever it is, reading the books, pulling the hose, fishing the fish, learning how to drive the car, unless I'm doing it and I'm applying myself to do it, all that knowledge is not useful. You know, like they say, knowledge is powerful, but it's more powerful when it's being utilized. So I can learn how to, I can learn how to be the best, like I'm doing now, the best medical person in the clinic. I can YouTube that all day. How do I do IVs better? How do I do EKG quicker? How do I know what all the drugs are? But I'll never know what the drugs are or what an EKG really means or what it is unless I'm knowledgeable. And now I'm knowledgeable and I can apply that knowledge to getting the correct reading or the correct diagnosis. So now I'm applying that knowledge, and that's more powerful. But I would have never, I could have sit here all day and tell you they pull heavy hose, but I'd have never known how heavy or how difficult it was until I did it. So now I can sit here and tell you, unless you really want to do it, just don't sign up, because you're going to fail the first day because you're not ready. Kind of like we were saying, the guy who came across and he's doing more work than the white people, and he's got a better truck and he's got 6 kids. He knew that already. but he took what he knew and he utilized it and applied it. And that's the reason, for whatever reason, he's working 8 jobs and still getting by better than the person who doesn't even want to work the one job.
That's real. And I think we've touched on a lot today, as far as just, self-doubt and being able to push past that. And I think for people listening, it's normal to doubt yourselves at times, but we're just trying to offer you advice and real world application on how to get past that. Because I think there's this notion that it's an all or nothing thing. Like either you have self-doubt or you don't, but it's important to realize that you need the tools, like we've been talking about, being ready to face that self-doubt when you come into it. You need to be able to identify it. If you never reflect and you don't know what it looks like, you can't address it when it happens in your own life. And so I want to end the conversation, like we always do, like maybe with a quote or just 2 or 3 practical pieces of advice that you would give somebody that may be dealing with self-doubt. Maybe they know it, maybe they don't, but it's just like, I really want to do something, but for whatever reason, I'm not doing it. I'll let you start, Aaron.
I mean, self-doubt. If you say you don't have self-doubt, then you're lying. Everybody subconsciously thinks about something, whether whether they're ugly, whether they don't have a lot of money, whether they're not fit, but you do something to get over it. Or you just don't let it bother you. You got to that point where, all right, I understand, but that's who I am. So the self-doubt, I mean, just for a quick example, like me and Ty have been talking junk to each other since last week's video. And I'm trying to make him self-doubt himself about whatever, you know, based on his opinions and whatever nonsense we're talking at the time. And he's doing the same. And
What am I
it could
doing?
be true, it couldn't be true. You just like to add a little bit of fuel to the fire.
Mm.
But and then when it's the other way around, it's the same thing. But the thing is, just like him, always gonna have an opinion. And sometimes you get to that point where we were talking about where you got to realize that now we're starting to blatantly get disrespectful. So for me, I'm pretty good at like letting stuff go. Like I'll heat it up and bring it up. You know me, Robert. Even with Cody, if I see that guy, first thing I'm gonna start give him a heat about is how he thinks he knows everything and nobody can beat him or tell him anything. So of course I beat him in the race. I was faster. I'm
Oh,
stronger. I'm
Cody.
better. Yeah, you ain't gonna beat me ever. That's the mentality. But the mentality is, again, it's competitive nature, it's positivity, and some of it, if you're not ready for that environment or you're not prepared for the back and forth in the exchange of words or the opinions that aren't the same as yours, and you let that get to you, then you start having self-doubt. But since we're both kind of at the place where you ain't gonna tell me nothing that I already know, and there's nothing you're gonna tell me that I didn't know already. So I was prepared for that. We already knew we were gonna go back and forth. I don't care if he thinks he knows everything in the world, or if I think I know everything or all in the world. I didn't let it get to me. It didn't change me. If I have a difference of opinion, whether it's right or wrong, I'm still gonna tell you my opinion, and we're still gonna go back and forth on it. Just like Robert. Robert knows for a fact that there'll never be a point in the time, even if I am in a midlife crisis, that he'll be able to beat me on a basketball court. So it's just all about that mentality, man. I'm always going to continue to be better than you, not because I think I'm better than you, but if I fall short and I just follow you, I may not ever be as good as you.
Mm.
So I always want to be better than you. And if I fall short, I tried, but at least I know I competed and I'm the best of me. And you know that I can try to be better than you.
All right.
I like that. Good reflection.
What
Shout
what you got to say, Hoodie?
shout out to Cody. Shout out to Cody.
He lost in that race. Just to let you know.
That guy's a character, man. Knowledge creates a living, man, but hard work keeps it solidified. So, for those who, want to do something, how bad do you want it? You gonna worry about what everybody else says, or you just gonna worry about how you feel? Facts over feelings. Like most people can do a lot of stuff. They can do whatever they want to do. It's just they let too much of the outside stuff in, and then they don't ever do it. Like, you ever see somebody get so excited about like a job opportunity, and they're like so excited, their face lights up, all that stuff, and then people are like, well, it comes with, they're like, oh well, that seems stressful, or that seems like too much paperwork, or that seems like this, and then they start thinking about that, and they're like, well, maybe you're right, maybe it is, and it might be. The fact might be it's a lot of paperwork, but are you gonna let that stop you from being in that position that could potentially change your life? So knock out the self-doubt, knock out the negative talk, affirm what you're gonna do, speak it into existence, and just be you, man. At the end of the
I
day,
mean,
that's all you can do.
that touches on me a lot because that's the thing. Like, I didn't want to be in the hospital, getting on the computer, pushing documents, having people sign stuff, giving vaccinations. Like, I wanted to be on the truck, going to the car wrecks. But if I let the people who didn't make the mistake be like, why would you want to do that? You're just gonna be sitting behind the desk and wearing scrubs and working with nothing but females, and like, you don't want to do that.
Mm.
And after the time, it wasn't that I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to do more. Like, I wanted to apply myself and have a more beneficial impact on the community when people need help. That's who I am. I'm a helper. So I also had to realize, well, that's the same thing you were doing. If you didn't get hurt with the hands, you'd still be in the hospital helping the people that need to be helped, and you're still having an impact. So I had to get to the point where it was like, does it matter? As long as I'm helping, I'm still helping. The job ain't the same, the opportunity ain't the same, but I'm still being presented with this place in my life to better it. So should I say no to the better job and the more money and continue, working at Popeyes or wherever people are working? The guy who's telling you it's a lot of paperwork though, man. But yeah, I just don't want to flip chicken no more. You know what I mean? I'd rather sign the papers all day for $5 extra than flip the chicken and not want to flip the chicken anymore.
Oh.
So like Ty was saying, just it's reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to reflect on myself, or am I going to reflect on the opinion? Because at the end of the day, I'll still be flipping the chicken if I let the opinions dictate what I'm doing.
Mm.
And I think
hold on, Fitz's position in all of this, he's an instigator. This man was making videos of himself, bro. Impersonate us. I was like, bro, this man has got to be the freaking best instigator. Right. He it continues to instigate, throw fire. It just throw fuel on the fire, bro. Like, he does it all the time. And what's funny, bro, is I thought about this moment, and
his ass will laugh the whole damn time.
Bro, he just thinks it's so funny, bro. Yeah. And I'm gonna shed some light on him, bro. And I think it's because you said Cody. So a long time ago, in college years, Fitz, or maybe it was before I met you. I don't remember. But remember that time that you fought somebody? I don't remember who it was, but they had stole your shoes or something like that. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I think Cody.
I didn't end up fighting. That was my brother.
Oh,
who'd you fight in the Springs?
I didn't fight him. I just ran up on him, but I didn't end up fighting him. I just got my shoes back.
Oh, this guy. It just made me think of that moment. It was funny.
There you go. I mean, we're about to fight if I don't get my shoes back, but if I get my shoes back, we don't have to fight.
No, I mean, I think, instigating aside.
This guy, this man was literally doing a comedy show. He even put the hoodie on to impersonate me. This man.
I think my little practical piece of advice is people don't really know themselves well enough to self-doubt themselves. And I say that because we've been talking about reflection a lot. And I think in order to really have a true sense of self, you have to reflect more often than you judge yourself. And through reflecting, you're able to better know yourself and know what you're about and what you're not about. And I think so many people figure out who they are and what they're about in the moment instead of in a place of calm, like non-pressure situation. And so I would just say, get to know yourself better so that, you know, you can determine when there is that self-doubt, whether this aligns with who you are and what you are and what you stand for. You know, like if you're putting in the work and you're Aaron and you're going and doing the fire stuff every day, and then somebody comes along that really isn't credible and they're like, oh, well, you know, you can't be doing that, you're weak or whatever. Or you know what I'm saying? It's like, then you know, like, okay, I shouldn't be self-doubting myself based on this source. Like when I was in school, there was teachers that never grew up where I grew up. They didn't know anything about me, but they would present all these statistics like, if you come from here, you're gonna be this and that and this and that. And I was like, well, that's not me though. But some people internalize that. They're like, well, I come from there, so therefore I am gonna be that. And you know, why should I even try? Why is school important? All these things. But through self-reflection, I was able to take myself out of that picture and put myself in a different picture. And, you know, when that happens, it's a lot easier to align yourself with things that are for you and disalign yourself with things that are against you. You know, like I played basketball every day. So when Aaron says he could beat me, you know, it's a bold-faced lie.
I got a question. I got a question for you, Fitz.
Yep.
What you gonna do with that hair, bro? Starting to look like you got a lace front on, boy, with them edges, boy. Hey, what? Golly, boy.
The hairline.
My dog got a whole headband. Do it again.
This is what I got. This is all I got to do right here, though.
Do it again. Do it again so Eric can see. Do it again. That's a headband, bro. Oh my god, bro.
Y'all be asking me what I'm gonna do with my hair, but every podcast y'all be covering y'all's.
We comfortable.
I don't cover mine. Mine's the same as it always is.
Look at him.
You can see mine.
Now they pulling it out. Well, I ain't got a cool hat to put on, and I ain't got the signature hoodie.
Where's the LA hat at?
My LA hat is up somewhere.
This guy. You ain't wearing an LA though.
I'm wearing the BSU shirt. Oh, it's on this side.
This guy.
All right. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think. More great material. If you want us to touch on the topic for all three people that be viewing this, let us know.
Yes,
we'll
shout out to Cassandra. She's watching it.
Shout out to Sandra.
I know one person that's watching it too. Whoever the third person is, thank you for finding us.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for all the views. One day we'll
Tatiana.
do like a nah, she ain't be.
Everybody puts on the podcast just so we get views.
Right. Just go in there and watch it multiple times. Just keep it on replay all night long.
You should have brought your sister on here.
She's not here right now.
I know you should have brought her on though. Could have been our special guest. She ain't worth it.
Nobody wants to hear what Felicia has to say.
Maybe another time.
I trust y'all's word then. I only know her from the clubhouse.
So, all right. Thank you for watching from the Bomb Podcast. We'll be back next week. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment.
From the bottom. Rule the bye.
Peace.